What's going on, guys? It's Andy. Today I'm going to be taking a look at multiplayer on the Retroid Pocket 2. I've had somebody ask me what that would be like because this device does come with an HDMI cable to connect it to the TV, so it could be potentially a viable solution for a home console of sorts so that you can sit on the couch and play multiplayer games. So the way I've got mine set up right now, you can connect it to the TV with an HDMI, as I mentioned. However, the issue I'm having is that I don't have many generic Bluetooth controllers like the 8-bit DO. I've got this one, I've also got an Xbox One controller, and my issue with this, even though it does have Bluetooth and I've connected it to Android devices in the past, I'm having issues getting it connected to the Retroid Pocket 2. So what I would like to do is be able to connect this to the TV and sit on the couch and try to use two controllers simultaneously, but I'm having issues getting the Xbox controller connected. So maybe that's something that you guys might be able to figure out, or maybe a little bit more research can maybe answer that question. But for me, I'm just not able to get it working. So today, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using the built-in buttons for player 1 on the Retroid Pocket 2. And then for player 2, I'm going to be using my trusty 8-bit DO N30 Pro. So the way I'm going to be doing this, I am going to use a screen capture method for the Retroid Pocket 2. So because the screen is so small, it's going to be kind of hard to see and kind of juggle both back and forth. So I'm just going to be doing a screen capture on the device itself. And once we get to that point, I'll just cut to that part of the video. And so, yeah. So player 2 is going to be 8-bit DO, player 1 is going to be the built-in buttons. I have not tried this yet. All I've done is gone through the configuration to make sure that hopefully the 8-bit DO is recognized as player 2. But again, this is going to be my first actual test at it. So let's just jump into a game and see how it works, and then I'll get into maybe showing you guys how I set this up. So let's start with the system. Obviously, any of the Game Boys are not going to support local multiplayer, but we will start with something simple. Let's try an NES, and let's go to let's just try Tetris actually. Oh, Ice Climber might be a good one. Let's just try Ice Climber. Okay, I forgot to close RetroArch. Let's try that one more time. So we'll click play on Ice Climbers. Okay, and then now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch to the screen capture. Okay, so you should be able to see the frame counter there in the screen capture. We're running at about 52, and that's an NES game, so that may not bode well. We'll see. It's back up to 60 now. And do we have it? Oh, I've still got my cursor enabled. Sorry about that. So we've got controls for player 1, of course. We figured we would. And for player 2, we also have controls, so that's good news. Now, again, this is an NES game, so it's not going to be hard to emulate whether you have two players or just one. NES is going to be pretty easy. But yep, we have full control with each individual controller, and you could imagine if you had two 8-bit DOs or two other generic controllers, you could feasibly plug this into the TV and sit down on the couch and have couch co-op. So now let's just jump back into another game here. We're going to go ahead and move away from NES. So we're going to close RetroArch with our hotkey combo. Now we'll just step up one tier by going to the Super Nintendo. And now I think our best bet is going to be Tetris. So let's scroll to the T's. And I'm really just looking for games that are going to be two players on screen simultaneously. If you think about things like Super Mario, those are, you kind of take turns. So we'd be able to find out if the controllers are working, but I'd like to see how it does simultaneously. So let's go ahead and jump into Tetris. Okay, so it's loading that up just fine, and I did set up the mapping for the 8-bit DOE as controller 2 within the RetroArch settings, so it should just carry over throughout any system that we try to open. So let's go Tetris. And we're having some pretty significant frame drop here, and that could be for a couple of reasons. One, we're using, two controllers, but the other thing is I'm also doing a screen capture. So that could very easily slow it down as well. Okay, so we've got controls for player 1, we've got controls for player 2. So that works. It did slow down. I may try just quickly to do a test of just what the camera is picking up on the device to see how it functions without the screen capture, because that is going to take a pretty significant hit in performance, and it's already not a crazy powerful device, so that's something to note. So now let's jump to where I think we're probably going to see some issues. We're going to go ahead and jump right into Mario Kart 64. And I have, again, I'll show you, I have already set up the controls and mapped the 8-bit DOE controller as player 2 within the Mupen 64 settings. Okay, really struggled with that. Okay, so we're still in a game. Let's go ahead and quit this game. Go back to the main menu and hopefully test out some multiplayer. I'm kind of surprised to see that the performance, the frame rate really isn't taking that big of a hit with the screen capture on, but we'll see what happens when we actually get to having two controllers on the system at the same time. Okay. Mario and Luigi, won't call that good. So right now, we are seeing a decent bit of frame drop as well as a little bit of flickering on the screen. So definitely a significant hit on the performance right now, but again, that could be the screen capture. So we'll just see what this looks like with the screen capture just so you can get an idea. And then hopefully do another view of what the camera is picking up. The screen will be small, but it would be nice to see if the performance is any better. So again, we do have input on both controllers, so that is good. As long as that screen capture is the main contributor to this poor performance, then this really could be a viable solution. So let's go ahead and close out of this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to disable the screen recorder. Let me jump back into Dig and I'll disable that screen recorder. Or stop recording. Okay, so stop. Okay, so that saved the video, that's good. All right, and I'll link that screen recorder app in the description if you want to see what it is. It seems to work pretty well, it's very easy to use. So now without that screen recorder, we're just gonna work in reverse and we're just gonna test those same games again, but without the screen recorder turned on. And hopefully we will see some improved performance. So while that loads, okay, Okay, so we're back in, and yeah, I thought it would do that. So it's our previous state, which is where we already had 2 controllers set up, so this should be pretty easy. Hopefully there's not a glare from the light. We'll just move it up a little bit to try to avoid that. Okay, they seem to have switched for some reason. Yep, they switched. But as you can see, we do have input from both devices. This is the 8-bit DOE controlling the top screen. I'm doing poorly. Okay, and we're running, it's still a bit of a hit on the performance, but it's certainly not unplayable. So now let's try to control Luigi on the bottom screen. And you can see the frame counter there. Again, it's very small, so it's gonna be hard to see, but we're running right between 25 and 30 for the most part, with a few drops to about 20 here and there. But all in all, I think it's definitely playable. And again, like I said, if you had 2 8-bit DOE controllers or 2 generic Bluetooth controllers, I think you'd have no issue getting them set up. It's just that Xbox One controller that I had that I was having issues connecting to the Retroid Pocket 2. So you can see, really, now that I see that that is working, I have pretty good faith that the rest are going to work on RetroArch. Things like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, they're going to be even better. And especially without that screen recorder, which of course you wouldn't have that on while you were just playing games. Let's see, do I have a recent? Okay, played games. So here we are. Okay, so Tetris on Super Nintendo again. Granted, it's not a very exciting game. It's just going to be the easiest one to jump into and just to test the controls to see if both inputs are working for the system and recognized as 2 separate players. So press start, and already this is a huge jump in performance, because at this point, if you remember, we were at about 40 to 45 frames, if I remember correctly. So this is already significantly better. So let's do 2 players again. Press start. So we've got player 1 on the left screen there, running at just at 60 frames per second. And then on the right screen, we have 8-bit DOE controlling the player 2 control. And we're right at 60 frames. So that is a good sign. So as I suspected, the screen recorder was responsible for the huge dip in performance, which having 2 controllers and 2 players on screen at the same time, it's not going to be quite as smooth as just having a single player, depending on what system you're playing. Things like NES, and even I would say mostly Super Nintendo, you're probably not going to notice too many issues. Once you get to Nintendo 64, as you saw, it's perfectly playable, and you might be able to tweak maybe some frame skipping or a couple different things to kind of make up for that performance difference. But it is doable. And this one I just wanted to see just without the frame drop, or without the screen recorder, to see how the frames did, which this one actually was about full speed even with the screen recorder. But again, we've got player 2, and the first time you hit a button on the controller, it'll just say that it's mapped. So there you have it. So that is working well. The PlayStation emulator, I actually went through the settings and I didn't see any way to set up a player 2 for FPSE. It's something I will spend a little bit more time with because I'm interested to see. I am also just curious if, because this system by default already had the buttons mapped, it's a long shot, but I would like to see if maybe the buttons are just mapped already. That's just wishful thinking. We will see. And of course, this is another one that with the screen recorder, you're absolutely going to notice a huge dip in the performance, just like we saw with all of the other systems. But being that it is a newer system with 3D graphics and a little bit higher resolution textures and different things like that, it is going to be really, really chugging with a screen recorder. But again, if you're just wanting to play the games, you're likely not going to have a screen recorder on. Okay, that's good news, actually, I think. Well, it looked like good news. I think if we went in and mapped that pad 2, we could probably get it working. So it looks like it is doable, and I don't notice a big dip in the performance yet. Of course, that would maybe vary, you know, the mileage may vary when you get to when it comes to, you know, actually playing the games. So I would like to just show you now how I set this up. It's pretty simple. It's just like everything that I find with this device that, you know, everything's not just plug and play. And that's pretty much the case with any of these types of devices, especially emulation of really any system. It's just going to take a little bit of elbow grease and you can get it working. So with RetroArch, if you scroll down to the settings, we're going to look for input, and then we're going to find, so port 1 controls, of course, are where we map the buttons for the Retroid Pocket 2. For port 2 controls, you just click on that, and you can change the maximum number of controllers. I set it to 2 because I'll never have more than that. And then all you need to do is click Set All Controls. I've already done this, so I'm not going to do it again, but then it'll just go through the list of all the buttons to be mapped, and then you just map them to the button you'd like it to be on your second player controller. So I'm going to close out of RetroArch. We'll jump into Mupen64. It was a pretty similar process. All right, can we close this? Doesn't seem to be responding to anything that I'm doing here. All right, let's just close some settings. If you don't know how to open up the multitasking, if you just press and hold select on this device, it'll bring this up, and then you just need to highlight the app you want to kill and press the X button. And that's something that they don't tell you, but it is obviously very useful information to have. So we'll try to open Mupen64. Hopefully it doesn't do the same thing, and it didn't. So that's good news. All I did in Mupen64 to get 2 controllers is just go into the little menu icon here at the top left, scroll down to, I believe it was in Profiles, and then Controller, and then all you need to do is by default, all you'll have is this RP2 profile, which is obviously the Retroid Pocket 2 buttons. And then all you need to do is click New, and then name it whatever you want. I just named mine 8-Bit Do, and then map the buttons. And then I believe that was it. Select Profiles, that's what it was. So that's the next step. Click Select Profiles, and then for Controller 1 profile, select, you know, whichever one you'd want to be Player 1. And then for Player 2, you would just select whoever you want to be Player 2 for the Controller 2 profile. And that is pretty much it. So I will do a little bit more testing with the FPSE, hopefully get another controller and do some more in-depth testing of the multiplayer when it's connected to a TV, because obviously most people are not going to be playing multiplayer on a 3-inch screen. So hopefully I can get FPSE working, get another controller working, and then I will do another more in-depth video on the multiplayer aspect of this, because it's definitely a very appealing idea at the very least. So anyway, that is what I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I'd be happy to talk to everybody that I can. And if you want to support what I'm doing, please subscribe and click that bell icon if you want to get notifications when I upload another video. So anyways, guys, I appreciate it. I hope you have a good one.